Welcome to EnVibe Live Conversations with Amy Parker and Cheryl Dunn. By tuning in, you are joining a community that will inspire you to increase balance, wellness, and joy in your life. We'll offer expert information and insightful conversations to help us on our journey to live more EnVibe. For more information and articles, remember to also check out our website at envibelife.com. That's EnVibelife.com. We're grateful that you're here.
Hello and welcome to the EnVibe Live Conversations podcast with Amy Parker and Cheryl Dunn. We're joined today by Courtney Gill from Refine Aesthetics in Austin. But even though Courtney's in Austin, I think she has a lot of valuable information for anyone out there considering some aesthetic, cosmetic, medical aesthetic treatments. So Courtney, welcome to the podcast. We've known Courtney for a little while here in Austin. We're so excited she could make some time and join us on the podcast.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Courtney, tell us a little bit about what Refine Aesthetics is.
Or what is a med spa?
We've heard it's a med spa, but what is that exactly for someone who is completely a novice to all of this?
Okay. So Refine Aesthetics is a little bit less than a year old. I created it post-COVID, post-children, wanted to, create a space for patients to come in that felt maybe a little bit more comfortable in a smaller, more intimate setting than a big, large doctor's office. And, essentially the people that work here, I am a PA, I'm a licensed physician assistant in the state of Texas. I have Emily Johnston, who's also a PA, licensed in the state of Texas, and a medical esthetician. So that's kind of our core provider team. And we offer medical grade services. So injectables like Botox and fillers, laser services, resurfacing, photofacials and body contouring, as well as kind of more spa facials, diamond glow, dermabrasion, and skincare. So, we also have medical backgrounds. We are able to treat patients from a medical standpoint, prescribe medications. If there's complications, we can handle them ourselves as opposed to having to send you to another office. So I think our med spa is a little different than maybe all med spas globally, when it comes to when you say med spa in general.
But what would that be? I mean, how is a med spa different from
Miraval?
Yeah. Well, or just a different spa, one at a hotel or when you're on vacation.
Okay. So it's more medical services that we're providing to patients. So these are FDA approved devices that actually have, indications for hyperpigmentation or melasma or rhytids, also known as wrinkles. And so, you're not coming in for a massage here. That's something maybe in the future we'll have as an offering where it's kind of more spa-ish, but this is actually medical treatments that you're doing in kind of a luxury setting, in my opinion.
And what sort of qualifications does a spa have to be able to offer those treatments?
So in the it does vary state to state. In the state of Texas, you have to be a licensed practitioner to at least delegate or sign off on these patients once a year. So all patients need to be seen by someone with prescriptive delegation. That could be a PA, NP, MD, or DO annually. And then actually in the state of Texas, estheticians, RNs, mid-level providers like PAs and NPs, as well as physicians can perform these procedures on patients as long as they're being seen once annually by someone with prescriptive delegation, which I fulfill. So it does vary state to state, but in the state of Texas, that is the current law.
So someone could see you and handle all of that. It's not like they're having to go to their MD to get a referral or anything like that. You are can do it all.
Being a mid-level provider, both Emily and I pretty much practice we do have a supervising physician that's on our medical license, and he's there. He's actually a good referral source. We refer back and forth from a liability standpoint, but we actually practice very independently as a day-to-day. We have our own patients that we see ourselves, and then Irma, our esthetician, we see her patients annually. If there's ever any issues, we're there for her. So someone is always on site to treat those patients if needed.
Great. This is great. And you offer, we were looking at your website and we know you from doing the Nourish event with us as well, but you offer a lot of stuff from face to body. And I think I'm more familiar with some of the face stuff because I'm at that age that I've done a little bit of it, especially since we've been doing video. When you start doing video, you're like, oh, what happened? But the body stuff, like the sculpting, can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I'm like, ooh, that sounds kind of fun.
What are some of the non-invasive treatments out there right now that people are interested in or talking about?
Yeah. So, I used to work at a larger practice here in Austin, and I got to get so many hands-on experiences with patients and really see what works, what doesn't work, who's the right patient for certain devices and treatment options. And I think that's helped mold me as a practitioner. So when I decided to bring on, devices at Refine, I wanted to get what was the best, the most efficacious, what could really do what we wanted it to do. And when I came across EmSculptNeo, I really decided that was, I think, kind of the most cutting edge for what was available currently. So cool sculpting really led the lead back in 2011. It launched. It's been around for 10 years now. And then they came out with a body muscle stimulating device. And so did EmSculpt around the same time. The EmSculpt was mainly muscle stimulation to start. And then the Neo came out in October of 2020. And it combined both modalities to treat muscle and fat all in one treatment. And it really is an easy treatment. It's not, I would say, mild, maybe moderate discomfort. And I felt like it was the most cutting edge. So typically it's 4 to 6 treatments, depending upon the patient and where we're treating on the body, 1 week apart. There's a radio frequency component, which actually causes what we call apoptosis. So it stimulates the fat cells to die themselves, and your body's lymphatic system comes in and flushes out the debris, so to say. And then there's high FEM, high electrical muscle stimulation, that's stimulating the muscle contraction, actually more than what you can do on your own accord, because it's overriding that body-brain mechanism that you have for your own natural protection. And so it's kind of combining these modalities in 30-minute sessions to cause muscle hyperplasia and hypertrophy, which is growth and thickening of the muscle, as well as decrease in fat and adipose tissue in the targeted areas that we're treating. So you're going to see about a 30% fat reduction in the abdomen. There's some new FDA approval indications like inner thighs that have recently come out, outer thighs, buttocks, abdomen, quads, hamstrings, calves, arms. So you really can do some full body, body contouring with this device and target fat and skin and muscle all in one treatment.
So what part of the body do you find responds the best to that particular treatment?
I would say the most common areas we've treated, and what I feel like, we've globally seen biggest differences would be abdomen. I think for women, especially postpartum, that, really need to build that abdominal wall and abdominal strength back up. And it's actually the only thing, they don't have FDA approval for it, but that we see from a non-surgical standpoint that can reduce the diastasis recti that patients get postpartum, that separation of the abdominal wall that, you can fit 3 fingers by your belly button. Very common in women, especially if they carried multiples, to have that. And this is something that they at least can do to improve it by about 20% to really help them exercise more comfortably on a daily basis.
I saw that on your website and I dove into it because I personally had it, and this has been a long time ago, but I did the surgical repair, which is very invasive and a lot of downtime. And I don't recommend it because I have a lot of people come to me asking if you should do it. And I'm like, if that is not a very big separation, it's not worth the risk of that surgery, even though I don't regret that I did it. But it's nice to hear that this is an option for people, because most people, if it's not a huge split there and you can do something to get 20% better, it is great to build that wall back, to get a little bit more support, like you said, to make exercise a little safer.
Yeah. And feel better. And I'm pretty honest with patients after doing this for 10 years. I think you get to know, who's going to be happy with a non-surgical outcome and who's going to be expecting a surgical outcome. And I think you always have to do these non-invasive procedures with the mindset that, you're doing something, but it's not going to be overnight, and it might not be surgery. So, I think you as a patient have to tell your practitioner what your expectations are. And then as a practitioner, we try to educate you on what the realistic outcomes can be. So, this is the conversation that we try to have.
And what would the downtime be for this procedure?
So there's no downtime with this one. You can resume exercise the day of. You typically have a little bit of redness just from the heat that, is transient, lasts about 15 to 20 minutes. You might feel like you did something, but the way that it pulses, you actually don't get the same lactic acid buildup that you do when you do normal exercise. And that's what causes that soreness feeling. So, most patients, you'll feel kind of tighter, if you will, but you're not sore like you did exercise. So you can resume normal activities as is.
Where for a surgical correction of
it is not resumed.
Or cosmetic, it's weeks that.
Yes. And not everything we do, but the EmSculptNeo in particular is that. And the other thing I tell patients is, it never takes away the option of surgery. Mm-hmm. Right. So say you're someone who maybe is borderline and you're like, I've been recommended this. I really want to see if I see improvement with this. And if you do, that surgical option is always there if you feel like it's necessary.
Maybe when your kids are a little older, because how hard is it to be down for several weeks when you have little kids?
You have a 2-year-old.
If it's a postpartum procedure you're seeking out.
And one area that I hadn't really thought about that we've had a couple patients come in is, I have a patient who tore her ACL, really kind of had a disconnect with her muscle and her mind, and was having a hard time going through physical therapy, really not seeing the progression she needed. And she found this and treatment, and we are just treating one leg because she has so much atrophy in that one muscle. And after 2 treatments, she could walk out of here without her crutch. After 3, she didn't have a brace. And she was in tears because she's been living with the brace for 6 months. So, maybe that's not globally everyone, but for those few patients that have had surgeries or have had, a crippling disorder on one side, there are ways that we can try to help them return to a more normal life.
This is huge.
That's a big deal. And you got to think that this is the start. Mm-hmm. 5 years from now, there will be more or better, and 5 years from them, more and better. So,
yeah. Great. This is really good news, especially owning a physical therapy clinic.
Yes.
Seeing these imbalances in people and just knowing that this is an option.
Yeah. And then use in conjunction with you, still do your physical therapy.
Still do it. But if you can get something to help it, speed it up, maybe get that mind-body connection, talking to each other again, because it's a reality that sometimes people just cannot feel what I'm asking of them. They just can't feel the muscle turn on, right? And maybe bringing in something like this EmSculptNeo, that really, it kind of forces them to feel it, right? And then that will translate to where they can feel it when they're not getting the treatment, when they're in the office with me, or they're walking on the trail or whatever they're doing. I had no idea that was an option for it. Cause of course, I'm just thinking, skinny up my belly and clean up my thighs. This would be great. Right?
Yeah.
And so I want to move on to some of the other procedures, but something you said caught my attention and I want to go back to it. You started this in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
How did that come about, or how was that decision made?
So
speaking as someone who launched a business in the middle of COVID. Yeah.
So ironically, yesterday was my daughter's 2-year birthday, and she was born October 4th of 2019. Her name is Courtney Gill, and I had a 20-month-old who's now 3.5, Pierce. And about 10 days after she was born, I experienced a rare event, a rare heart attack called SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection.
Wow.
I look back and I was home alone. I definitely think stress contributed. but they don't really know what causes this. So I had a 4 centimeter dissection in my main artery of my left anterior descending artery of my left ventricle. So weird 30-minute episode. And then the next day a blood clot formed where that artery had dissected and narrowed the artery with the blood clot by about 90%. So that's what actually caused the heart attack.
Wow.
So, such a fragile state, healthy 34-year-old female. I look back, I think I probably had some high blood pressure, didn't realize it. We have no personal or family history of anything cardiac. So it's just this random event. And, being on maternity leave and going through cardiac rehab and other things happened. My nanny died, just random terrible things that 2 months following the birth of my daughter. Went back to work. And then when COVID hit, the world went into crazy mode. And actually it was kind of a blessing because I got 6 weeks just to rest and be with my family, which was kind of nice. I think a lot of people had a nice reset, but it really kind of just, those experiences really opened my eyes to, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Am I doing 100% what I want to be doing? Could I be doing something different or more? Do I want to stay at home with my kids? Do I want to open up a med spa? Do I want to move to, Costa Rica and just really reassess? And, I ultimately, things just kind of pointed, I very much believe in spirituality and karma and what opens doors in your life are meant to be. And, we had this building that we had bought for my husband, and it's a beautiful space. And we had some renters leave because of COVID. And I don't know, I just decided, let's dive in. I'm not retiring tomorrow, so might as well make the most of my career for the next 10 to 15 years. And so I wanted to create, a space for patients that they could feel a little more relaxed, with COVID and just the anxiety around being around a lot of people. So it's a smaller, more intimate setting. We have minimum of 30-minute appointments. We really, take precautions to try to, have cleanliness and put our patients first. And our goal here is to take what we've learned and from our backgrounds and then, bring the best to you. And that way you can be your best self. We want you to feel your best self. We want you to look your best self. And, from a business standpoint, you're our walking advertisement. We want you to have patients or people ask, what are you doing? You look so rested. Your skin looks glowing. That's what we want. We want you to get compliments. We want you to feel good. So, I decided to make a new space, and I don't think there's a lot of places in Austin that have that both medical background and kind of this more spa Austin boutique-y feel. So that was kind of combining those two worlds.
I love it. And now our listeners understand why we think Courtney's EnVibe,
right?
in her approach.
Yeah, I have crystals in all my rooms. We have, and not incense, but candles. And I just wanted to have a little more relaxing feel, but you're still getting medical grade treatments.
Well, plus, you're going to work to a job that you're trying to do without so much stress. So it also creates a nice space for you and the people that work there. And when you have that nice space, that comes across, people feel that. Your patients, your clients, they feel when you're at ease. It's hard to be at ease when you're a business owner.
It is. And, that's the new part of it for me. And I think I used to be a little more scared and intimidated by it. And I think, almost dying and then the world going to crazy, it's just okay, this is it. We're on the roller coaster. Here we go, kind of embracing that. And, it's still challenging every day, but I am energized by it. I'm excited by it. I love making connections. I love meeting new patients. I love learning about the marketing. And so it's been fun. It's been a fun, stressful, but good stress kind of adventure so far.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That is so key for, I think, other business owners to hear that you can be on this journey and be on this ride and not let the stress kill you, right? Just let it feed you, and maybe change the wording. Maybe don't call it stress. Maybe just call it the ride you're on or the flow you're in
instead of a
challenge, because that's just reality,
Yeah. The journey. It's part of the journey. So.
Part of the journey.
Well, and I think also the message you give that even if you're in what feels like your lowest times, something beautiful can come out of it. is a great message too. And I wasn't even talking about all the beautiful people you're helping with. I meant your life and your business and you being on the path you're on now.
I think, in Austin, we're more of a granola community in a way. And I think our majority of patients are women. I'd say half of them probably have been moms at some point in their life. And so I think a lot of women in particular connect with that, whether it's them or their own mother, just knowing that this has been birthed out of passion. And with, we're all of us, the practitioners, are moms. It's all about balance, and that's one thing I try to emphasize to patients. Like, this is a journey, not a race. Tell me, let's start with what bothers you the most. Let's work with your finances. Like what, cause it's, some people come in and it's whatever, like we can spend whatever we can do whatever. And then other people's are like, look, I've, $200 or $300. This is all I can do. What's a realistic expectation? So, we want you to be honest with what works for you. And, we're here to hear your story too. I love making connections. I want to know what your lifestyle's like. I want to know what your routine's like. If I recommend 10 creams to you and you're someone that's like barely puts on one, that's not going to work for you. So like, I want to hear all these different things about what's going to work best for you and how can we make it, you feel your most beautiful,
Yeah. I love that. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Let's jump off the cliff. Okay. So I think a lot of people, me being one of those people, have questions on Botox, fillers. Like I am, I mean, I have to say I'm ratting all my friends out. I'm 51 years old, about to be 52 years old. I'm one of the only people I know who has not done Botox. And it just kind of intimidates me a little bit. Like I'm
great.
I'm that person. I'm that person that if there's the 1% chance some goofy thing happens, it's going to happen to me. And so it intimidates me. So like, talk about that. What is it? When should you start? Who's doing it?
Okay. So there's 4 available, what we call neurotoxins. And what they basically do is inhibit the muscle movement. And
okay. So that sounds scary right there. Neurotoxin. That does not sound like something I want to be putting in my body.
So
does your body absorb it, process it?
So it's essentially a molecule. Yeah, it's essentially a molecule that decreases the communication at the nerve root ending to activate the muscle. So it's been around since it got found in the 60s, and then Botox itself was the first one to come to market. It's kind of the generic name that most people use. Okay. Started in the 90s. Dysport came in early 2000, which is a competitor for Botox. Xeomin 2011, Jeuveau 2018. So there's 4 available in the US. They all have the same onset and duration, or similar onset and duration and mechanism of action, essentially. So I personally tell patients, some people find preferences in one versus the other. We carry 3 of the 4 currently. But it's been around for a very long time. It's been well studied. Actually, Botox itself has a lot of medical indications, not just for fine lines and wrinkles. Patients use it for migraines. They use it for overactive bladder, esophageal spasms. You can use it for sweating in the underarm area or actually anywhere on the body. So it actually has a lot of medical indications. We use it in a cosmetic setting because of the fun benefits you get from it, like a more relaxed look, less oil, less sweating, more refreshed feeling. But there's a lot of other areas in medicine that they use botulism toxin is what so I think it is scary for patients. And what I kind of try to ease patients' mind is that if you try it once and you absolutely hate it, you never have to do it again. I think patients feel like you have to keep up with it. That's not true. Do you want to? Most patients do. There's a dose dependent relationship, meaning the number of units correlate with the amount of movement that we're trying to take away. So if you want a more natural look, we do less number of units versus if you want more of a no lines, no movement look, frozen, I hate to use that word, but frozen, so to say, then we would do more number of units. And so patients, there's some customability there that we can provide for you. And there's multiple areas we can treat 1 or 5. And so, the most common areas that we use Botox for are your glabella, which is your 11s or your furrow lines, your frontalis, which is your forehead. So kind of that, wide-eyed, raise your eyebrows, and then your crow's feet. So those are the most common areas. Other areas you can do are your masseters for clenching your jaw, your upper lip. We can give you a more relaxed lip flip, kind of an alternative to filler. We can soften those fine lines you get from pursing your lips, the mouth, your depressor angularis oris that are here, your DAOs. So that kind of downturn the mouth, your platysmal band. So there's a lot of different things we can play with. So I think it depends on where you want to start, what's, what bothers you the most. I think with Zoom, I've definitely had a lot of patients coming in saying, I have this scowl that won't go away, and so start there, start with one area, start with what you like and what bothers you.
I've been doing it for many years, and I even took a little break for a couple of years and then went back to it. And it's like clockwork that I can tell it wore off. And it's usually, I've already had my other one scheduled because I leave. And when I leave one appointment, I schedule my next one. And within a week or two, and I can see it. I don't know if Amy can see it, but next time it wears off, I'm going to show you. But I can really see it wear off. And I, like you said, I do it for the number 11 between my eyebrows. Yep. And that's the only place I've ever done it. And obviously they do a few little spots around here to actually, one eyebrow tends to sit higher on me than the other. So they put a little bit more on one side and it evens my eyebrows out.
Yeah.
It's
you can tweak it. So all of them, it's about a few days, like 24 to 48 hours to probably notice anything, a few days for it to really kind of kick in. And then about 2 weeks is when it's maximally kicked in for any of them. So we're always happy to see you back for a follow-up. If there's any asymmetry, we can address asymmetry. We can actually cause some lid lifting because we're relaxing depressor muscles. And then it should last you for about 3, maybe 4 months. You can get up to 6 months typically with heavier dosages. So 3 to 4 months is a good expectation. And it's kind of, you'll notice it wearing off, that movement returns, and you'll notice the lines kind of etching back in. So you asked about kind of when to start it. I always tell patients when you're looking in the mirror, no expression, and those lines are starting to form, right? Whether you're not scowling, but it looks like you might be scowling, or those forehead lines are, there without expression. That's the best time to optimally get a neurotoxin on board, because we're going to soften those lines from further deepening and even erase them if you get them early enough. Sometimes people do think that the lines that are around their mouth, their nasolabial smile lines, that's actually more of a filler issue. And so we can kind of go into the filler realm. Even though those lines are dynamic and created by movement, we can't freeze these muscles the same way without changing your smile or the way you talk. So we use fillers, and there's a couple different kinds of fillers. I'd say the most common one that people are referencing are called hyaluronic acid fillers. So Juvederm and Restalyne are probably the 2 most common ones that we hear. There are a couple others available in the US, and more come to market every year. I've been doing this since 2011. And I would say in the 10 years I've been doing it, we've gotten, 8 new fillers in our palette to use. And so I kind of tell patients, the same one we use for the cheek to really lift and reestablish kind of the scaffolding to hold up the ligaments and muscles that are starting to fall as we age is not the same one that we use for the fine lines around the mouth or the smile lines. There's different size molecules. There's different duration for molecules. There's different ones that we use in different areas, depending upon the patient and what look we're trying to achieve. And that's the beauty of it. That's the artistry of it. And so you always want to make sure that, you're going to someone that knows anatomy, that knows what fillers to use. I carry both Allergan and Galderma, and I carry their whole palettes because I like having that option for my patients.
When you do a filler, do you see the results immediately, or is it like the Botox where you got to wait 2 weeks?
So generally fillers, the hyaluronic acid fillers you see immediately. So I always tell patients for both Botox and fillers, risk of bruising and swelling is always there. So do not come in a day before your photo shoot. Ideally, you come in a week, if not 2. That way you have time for everything to settle. Fillers are gel-like substances that you kind of see a more instant gratification. Sometimes in the beginning, they can look a little lumpy bumpy because of bruising and swelling. But by that few days, typically they're kind of starting to integrate into the tissue. And then by about 2 weeks, optimally, everything's kind of settled. So you see a more instant gratification, and you might walk out of here loving it, but you might be a little bruised and one side might be a little more swollen than the other. So always give yourself at least a few days to about a week, if not up to 2 for a big event, just in case you have any big bruising or anything like that. So,
and I want to ask the opposite question. Is it ever too late to start?
No. I think sometimes people come in wanting a facelift. And we do have things that we call a liquid facelift. And I'm always realistic about the cost and the downtime and what they can expect to achieve. Sometimes it's not safe to do everything in one setting in one day. So there might be 5 or 6 syringes that we do today, which they say a syringe per decade is kind of a good rule of thumb, especially if you're treating the face globally. So people often are noticing this and this, but really what's happening is this, right? So we really need to treat the cheeks and the temples and the jawline to achieve a softening of this. Maybe we still put a little filler here, but sometimes people really need rejuvenation of this area. So that takes a lot more product. And once we start talking about multiple syringes, just as Refine anyways, instead of doing a per syringe pricing, we do kind of more package, package pricing. So I'm always happy for patients to come in and we can kind of talk about cost, but sometimes it's, not safe for a patient or they don't want to do it all in one setting. So maybe we'll rejuvenate the mid face first, and then you come back and we'll work more on the lower face. So it kind of depends on, what the patient's downtime is, what they're wanting to achieve, what money they're wanting to spend, that we kind of get a game plan for someone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It totally does. But if you haven't been on board and you're already showing, pretty significant signs of aging, you might still be able to maybe ease your way in or do it gently to where everyone's not going to say, "Oh my goodness, what did you
Amy
do?"
did. Okay.
But I know, but still be happy with your results.
And I always ask patients, I like to hold a mirror in front of them and say, what bothers you? And because I think coming from a derm background, I always see pigment, and not everyone's bothered by their freckles and their sunspots. Some people hate that one sunspot, and I see this big furrow. So I always like to ask the patient what they're noticing changing about them. And you can always bring in a picture of yourself when you were 20 or 30. If you're in your 50s or 60s, this is what you looked like, and that's the way we know what we're kind of going for.
That's a great suggestion.
Really yeah.
And I actually am someone who's bothered by pigment. So do you have things to address that?
Yeah. And so when you talk about age, it's not only the volume that we're seeing change and the displacement of the volume, but there's textural changes and pigment changes going on as well. And so we do have a photofacial, we have a BBL Cyton, we have a resurfacing, the Opus Plasma RF resurfacing, and Morpheus 8 for resurfacing and skin tightening, which can be both face and body. And that's kind of part of the body contouring as well. So we have a couple different modalities to kind of treat patients globally. We're not just doing one thing and that's it, sending you somewhere else. We're really trying to say, okay, let's rejuvenate the skin. Let's rejuvenate the hairline we do PRP and exosomes to help hair regrowth. Let's rejuvenate the fine lines that you're seeing around the mouth, and so we can do one or all. It really depends on you and what you want to be your experience and where you want to start. We can guide you on that journey, essentially.
Just in case you're hearing the snoring, we have our little mascot over here.
It's not. My dog is asleep on the floor. Our stomachs aren't growling. We're not hungry.
And he's normally doesn't snore this loud, but he has a new puppy in the house, so I think he's exhausted.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is great information because, like you said, what bothers one person doesn't bother another. And when you say pigment bothers you, I'm like, really? I think you have great skin. I'm like, I don't see it at all. But
so I think ideally patients, come to the office, minimal makeup if you can. We can always wash your face here, and come in for a consult. Let's get a game plan. Maybe we want to see you next week for fillers first, and then we do a photofacial, and then we do a resurfacing. that way we can kind of see you, get a game plan, know what your downtime is. There's things we can do the same day. There's things that we want to maybe spread out. So just from a safety standpoint, especially if you're naive to treatments. And so we want to see how your body reacts. Are you a sweller? Are you a bruiser? All these things kind of help us make decisions on what's best for you and how to plan for that.
Yeah. I did see on your website where you have memberships. And is that I think that sounds like something interesting for someone who is knowing that they want to do long-term care.
Yeah.
Right.
So we launched that I think there's benefits on both sides for us as a business and for you as a patient. So it's $159 a month. You bank the money. So it's not like you lose it if you don't use it. And it just accumulates. And then it guarantees you globally 10% off both individual and service packages, as well as skincare. So I think from your standpoint, you get a guaranteed discount, saves a little bit of money. We give you a little birthday bonus, and you can bring friends in to give the same discount to quarterly. And then for us as a business, it guarantees that you're going to come back and see us and hopefully tell your friends. And, it will grow our small little boutique, med spa to something that we can get more devices and more people in here to offer these beautiful services for people. So, I think hopefully there's a synergistic energy there. And I think for people that want to come in and either just get facials or regular Botox, or they like their skincare to be medical grade, it just kind of guarantees you that that we're here and you have a discount here.
Yeah. And that's almost a whole nother podcast, because that is a transition. As a lifelong skincare nerd, I really just made the transition after 50 to more medical grade or pharmaceutical grade products. Mm-hmm. And I do think there's a time and you start seeing a difference.
Yeah.
I love it. I think this is great information. I feel like we've been able to, in a short amount of time, cover a lot of stuff that you offer. And I think we've demystified what some of this is. And hopefully given people a little bit more comfort if they've been scared to maybe go into a med spa, but given them the idea that, don't be afraid. You can start with baby doses. Yeah. Little things. You don't have to come out looking.
Well, and also some tips. Do a little research on the place you're going and what their background is. And think about, maybe you want in and out fast, or maybe you want that more nurturing, caring experience. I know I do. I do. If I go in, I need a little hand holding.
And we might not be the right place for everyone. And, there are things that we don't offer. We don't have surgery, and I don't have a CO2 laser currently. So, some patients come in and they need those more aggressive treatments or a facelift. And I straight up tell them, let me give you some names of people. A lot of times it costs $100 or $200 just to go interview your plastic surgeon and find out what that actually entails. So, I'm happy to point you in the right direction if it's something we can't handle for you as well. I've been in the industry now for enough time to kind of, I think, know who's good in Austin, and hopefully, provide the best. At the end of the day, I'm a medical provider, and that's what we want to do for our patients. We want to provide the best medicine for them.
Medicine for being your best self.
I love it.
Love it.
So, well, thank you so much for coming on with us today. We're going to put a link at the bottom of the podcast on our show notes. It'll take people to your website. Can you go ahead and repeat your website again for us?
Yeah. So Refine Aesthetics, we are located at 14th and West. It's basically kind of a block off Lamar and a block off Enfield, and a cute little house, 1930s house. And we have an esthetician, 2 providers, front and back staff. And, we are here for you. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. till about 4:30. And, we're loving what we're doing. And
I think people can find you at refineaesthetics.com and also at Refine Aesthetics on Instagram.
Yep. Refine Aesthetics ATX on Instagram. refineaesthetics.com on our website.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, Courtney. And we hope everyone will go check it out.
Yeah, thank you. This is kind of getting into laser season. So, this is a good time of year if you want to do some resurfacing or skincare, winter or cooler months as opposed to the middle of summer, even though that's when people's freckles come out and their rosacea flares. This is kind of when you want to treat it. So come and see us before the holidays. Give yourself at least 2 weeks prior to a major event if you can. And we offer free consultations. So come and see us and we'll get you a game plan.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to EnVibe Live Conversations. For more information and to join our community, be sure to check out our website at envibelife.com. We look forward to sharing with you.